fast. These guys are sort of in control of what you're about to hear. I'm here to referee in case things go completely off track, but this is their, this is theirs to demonstrate to you on how to successfully do the math. Be careful what you hear because they don't want you to beat them, so who knows what we're gonna get.
Let's see.
Would you like
Ed,
to start with?
Roy, Red Miarecki, Nancy Snyder, Blane, you met. Blaine's introduced himself. Ed's gonna have to make up his own biography. Nancy has been sailing for,
You're not allowed to say how long.
Thank you, Peter. Since,
Nancy's been sailing all her life,
Since God,
except for the first 4 years. She's done 35 Macs, do the math. And races on multiple kinds of boats. I think you have 6 wins, did I hear? 6 fleet wins
That's it?
on the Mac? Sorry,
yeah,
9 wins. 9 fleet wins. Greg's been racing offshore for 45 years, do the math. I don't know when he started sailing.
See, I did that hair.
Actually, no. Generally, he races on his Ericsson 35 Providence.
Not a T10.
That's not a T10. He's done 39 races to Mackinac. He's been chairman of the race in 2008 and 2009. He's does a lot for CYC. I think, are you currently part of the CYC Foundation?
I'm the president.
You're president of the CYC Foundation. So you can yell at him for the rules changing about AIS.
No. The foundation's got nothing to do with the Mac race.
Too bad. You explain that to the angry crowds and torches.
I'm with the crowd.
All right.
I'm with you.
Say 3 sentences about yourself and then where do you guys want to start?
yeah.
Cancer. I started racing I started sailing in 2010 after taking lessons at Chicago City at Belmont. Got into racing with Jing Bang originally, which was the old iteration of Blane's boat. Did some charter on Blue and 20 drinks, and then bought meat, I think in 2012 or something, 2013. And then racing as much as possible. Now I have a young boy, so that's racing lately.
Now you're on me.
Yep, that's it. Where should we start? Just
So Steve asked us to give you some advice on some truisms. Apparently, there's a lot of truisms about the Mac race. I don't think any of those are actually truisms, but we can talk about them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what is it? Yeah, like go.
Here.
It's a bunch of rules. Anyway, here's the only truism I'm aware of. I think there's only there's 3 main categories of kind of a Mac race, right? And all the old guys, like not any of us, say it's a third preparation, right? So there's a lot of boat prep involved that I don't think you worry about as much as in a day race or race to Waukegan. It's a third skill, which I think that's probably true. And then there's a third luck. You can be amazing on the Mac race. You can be spectacular and still lose. You can be a total goof and still win. And I think that that's not necessarily true for every race. I think a lot of the comments that we're going to probably share with you today, a lot of it is going to boil down to boat prep and preparation, and then some of the things that we do on the Mac. So that would be, but a lot of truisms, there aren't that many. Like you should always go inside the managers, outside the managers. I mean, I think it depends. Yeah, what's an example of truism?
Here. I'd have a real good reason to get off the rum line.
Yeah, truism. I can have a real good reason to get off the rum line. I mean, I've never heard that actually.
No,
Here, is that a thing?
it is. I have heard other people say that. I've never paid attention to it.
Yeah, we don't care about the rum line. When we're thinking about this. What about you guys? What do you think about that? Truism. That sounds kind of right.
Do you follow the fleet or not?
They leave the fleet.
We just wait.
From us, I don't care. Like if somebody else, if it's the 2 miles before the finish, and on Cynthia's, right instead of left, I care, but if it's Saturday afternoon, am I worried about, following somebody? Like, we've got our own race. If we win or lose, it's gonna be our own thing. I'm not gonna follow somebody else just because somebody else does something. That's just our view. What do y'all think?
I would say the run line is just a point of reference. That's really it. And, I wouldn't bother to cover anybody. You have to sail your own race until you get to the bridge. Then cover.
I think we probably start thinking about fleet tactics around Grays Reef.
Yeah.
I mean, the T10 fleet splits and people disappear, and then mysteriously you all come back together within 12 seconds of each other at 2 or 3 places along the race, so.
Does that one work too?
Yeah, it does.
Like feedback.
I guess maybe for us, maybe instead of saying run line, at least in my head, it's more like VMG.
Yes.
So, so that incorporates the run line and just, the shortest distance, but also the forecasts and kind of how you get to, whatever waypoint you want to as fast as possible.
Mhm.
So here's another truism, alleged truism. If breeze is staying northerly, tack up the Wisconsin shore. Again, I've never heard that before. By the way, I wouldn't do that.
Never heard.
I've never heard that.
Mm-mm.
I mean, what?
No.
If the breeze is north, I'm not gonna go shaking hands with anybody we're seeing, right? If I have a choice of steering 45 or 315, let's say you're a north wind, I got a choice, right? 315 or 45, I'm gonna steer 45, right? I'm closer to the mark. That's one of the things I think we are gonna generally try to steer the favorite tack. If I can get better VMG up the lake, I'm gonna do it, but that's not rocket science, that's just sort of what you do in most races. There's a question, yeah?
How do you balance between trying to decide to sail the favorite tack and current wind and predicting where the wind is going to be further down the course and getting there?
Mhm.
That's
$64,000 question.
That's $1 million question. So
Yeah.
when you are sailing favor tack, right, you're making money right away. And so it's a lot of it is like, you're making money now versus making money later. It's just like the old investment thing. You have to think about what kind of wind you're getting later and how much better it's going to be. And you have to sit there and think about the trade-off, right? If you're going to get some amazing different wind in 4 hours, then I might, for example, in this year's Mac race, right? One of the things that we ended up doing is we ended up going out on, how many of you did the Mac race last year? Remember? Okay, so I've blocked it out of my mind. But we were going on starboard tack for a long time in a very bumpy northeast wind. It wasn't really supposed to be quite that northeasty. Yeah, we were starboard tack and we were heading west and we were going west and we were somewhat unfavored. Why? Because I didn't want to pin myself on the Michigan beach. All of the routing said, oh, go into Michigan Beach and shake hands with people in Ludington. The problem with that is if you're stuck underneath the sobbles, Blane mentioned this earlier, if you're under the sobbles.
True.
That's
Yeah,
a
don't
truism.
put dawn,
That's a
Yeah.
dawn or evening.
No,
That.
Yeah, sobbles, I hate the sobbles, right? But the problem is the wind gets bendy in there and then you're tacking dead upwind on a northerly. So we didn't want to do that. So we were sailing unfavored for quite a while because we were hoping we were going to get a northeast to a north shift and we got it. And then we were able to come over on port and come into the Michigan beach without having to be pinned into the actual beach itself. So it really, that's a long way of saying it depends.
Yeah, I think for us this year, we ended up in a really bad spot at the end of the first day. I think we were in 7th place out of 9 or something like that. And we had to make a choice whether or not we would split with the fleet. And we kind of got stuck. Like our choice was kind of what Greg said. It was to sail 3 something or sail lower than 45. And we made the choice to just keep going north. Right, so you think about the race. You got to go 200 and something miles north, and you got to only go. It's not that many miles east, right? So
125.
125 east. So I think about making north and making east. You need to make more north than you do east in order to finish the race. So for us, when we had the choice of tacking back and sailing lower than 45, we just said we're not going to do it. It's going to take us the wrong direction, right? That put us in a situation where we ended up outside the Manitous. We used AIS and we looked and we saw that there was a gigantic clump of boats and nobody had any speed. And it kind of saved our ass, definitely saved our ass. So yeah, you gotta balance sailing the wind you're in, watching the fleet, and then you make a couple bets along the way.
There are truisms that, hold true and some that don't, but always watch VMG. Two reasons I would say that it might make sense to go to the Sables. One, if the land temperature is much different, i.e. warmer than the water temperature, you could get a really good breeze over there. But you have to have a substantial differential as it comes off the sand dunes. So that the sand has to get really hot.
Or cooler at night.
Or cooler at night, right, and the water is warm. So then you might get a breeze in there that you wouldn't get out on the lake. The other thing to watch is current. Everybody says, oh, we don't have current here. Oh, yes, we do. Lake Michigan is a giant bathtub, and there is definitely a current. And so when you watch your VMG, watch your course over ground and your boat speed as well. And sometimes you'll find you have as much as half a knot of current against you. And so that makes a difference too on if I'm going to, depending on where that current is running, it might be less along shore. And so you might do well by getting out of the current and going closer to one of the shores. And then, of course, the waves. If it makes sense to go over to Wisconsin because you have a northwest breeze, the waves are going to be smaller over there, then you're probably going to have a pickup in boat speed to get out of the waves for a while. So all of those, I think, probably lesser known and lesser thought of factors can make a very big difference.
Yeah.
I got that.
What's another truism?
Another truism.
If it's hot and the breeze is forecast to be light, play the shore. Well, maybe, sure. I mean, if you've got nothing in the middle of the lake, zero, zip, yeah, I'd rather be on the shore. Of course, the challenge is you're sitting in Chicago and, you have a shore, but then you're sort of stuck going along Wisconsin. And it's not quite as good as Michigan because it doesn't tend to heat up quite as much, right? Because you don't have all the sand dunes. The tricky part then is if you try to get across to Michigan and you don't make it, and you're floating around the middle of the lake. So, right, sure, if you don't have any breeze in the middle of the lake, being in the shore is good. I think to Nancy's point, being in Michigan Beach is good on Sunday if there's no wind out on the lake. The problem with that Michigan Beach is if you have any kind of northerly gradient, like we had this year, what was happening is that northeast gradient was mixing with a west-northwest shore breeze and driving the wind into a dead north configuration. And so you see all the boats on the beach, like steering 46, and then they would tack and steer like 309 and back and forth and back and forth. We saw all that happen, but we don't need that, right? So being in the beach, and the problem is once that happens, you're cashed, right? You're going dead upwind, and then you've got big stopple to like get around. Very, very, anybody ever do that? Very irritating to have to like tack underneath big sobbles. So there is a truism: never go between the sobbles. We religiously follow that truism. We do too, because it's
It is
yeah,
down there.
rarely. Now, if you want to go between the sobbles and Betsy, that's not as crazy because Betsy tends to fall away. But that sobble underneath big sobbles and ugly.
Yeah, is it triangle of death? No,
Yeah.
don't go there.
Big upsuck.
Is that what we call it? The triangle of death? Good. What, other thoughts on?
Other thoughts on that?
Just maybe on the shore breeze stuff. So the weather is important. I don't know how correct this is, but I think of it this way. There's kind of two different types of wind. You have weather system wind, which is a system that's blowing through. And so if you go and you get a grid file and you look at the isobars, the tighter the isobars on a wind map, the higher the wind speed, right? So if you have a weather system wind, it's probably going to be pretty consistent, and I think it's a little bit easier, the tactics with a weather system wind.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have a weather system wind, then the only wind you have to rely on is thermal wind. Thermal wind is really fickle, right? So we had a number of races this summer, buoy races, where we were sailing thermal wind, and it's mind-numbing to me. So what happens is, here we say we get a lake breeze in the afternoon. Okay, that's a thermal wind. That's a pressure differential between the lake and the land. And as the land heats up, the water starts coming off the lake, right? So what's the saying? You sail 100 at 110 at 110 here?
Yeah.
So 110 in the afternoon, the wind will be from 110 when we have a lake breeze, right? The opposite happens at night. right? So if you're in a situation where you don't have a weather system wind, the reason that people will say to sail up the shore at night is you get a thing called diurnal draining, and you get the wind coming the opposite direction, going back out to the lake at night. I found in small boats, you really can't, that diurnal draining wind is just, it's just death for a small boat. If you have a
They
big
won it,
boat-
you won it once with that.
We
Dave.
did.
You were
Huge.
shaking hands with people in Leland and you rode right up the beach and came in, what, second or third overall or something?
But you'll see the big boats, they'll work that shore breeze at night, and they've got enough rig and sail area to do it effectively. So I think it kind of depends on the size of the boat you're in, but you gotta be careful with the thermal wind. Pray for a deep, I will take the northerly gradient over nothing. Because the thermal stuff is it's gonna get you.
Do you have any thoughts on?
No, I should go first.
Okay,
Tell them about
Kidding.
what you did with the reverse lake.
Yeah, Nancy, come on.
I mean, am I dreaming that up?
no,
No, okay, I was like 30 years ago.
yes,
Okay.
thank
You
you.
were both there. It's relaxing.
We were,
That's fine.
well, I'm trying, what aspect do you want me to tell them about?
Tell them about the, like, you were smelling campfires on the beach and
Yeah.
on, what was it, Monday
Yeah,
night,
yeah.
Sunday night?
Yeah,
It's
so,
entertaining.
that was an interesting race. First off, the water was absolute glass. There was not a ripple of wind. The stars were reflecting, clear night, the stars were reflecting so much that it was like sailing in a sphere. And I had to hang on to the lifeline to drive because kept losing your balance. It was just incredible. And I smelled, so we had been sailing along with a east breeze off of Leland, and I smelled campfires. And there aren't campfires in Leland. And so that told me that the wind was about to shift. And so instead of sailing over to Leland, I worked our way more towards the Manitous because I smelled the campfires. Like I said, sometimes it's these small clues. And we ended up going around a number of boats that were parked in at Leland. So it can be the small clues. There was another time racing up to one of the Sables, and it was in the afternoon, and we had wind well, we didn't have wind, but we were moving, and the boats offshore were not moving. And I looked ahead of me, and I had like a yellow brick road of fishing boats.
Yeah.
It was the strangest thing, and I'm going right between them all. And it dawned on me that there was a current that the fish were running along, and I was running with the current. So I did everything I could to stay in that yellow brick road of those fishing boats. Now that sounds really silly, but we won the race. That we got ahead of everybody that was camped offshore. We just happened to be there, but you look for these weird clues on the lake and they can pay off. Those were fun, both fun races.
Let's do another one. Hey, do you want to start?
The
with-
four
Sure.
segments of
You
the
can,
race.
you
That's one
can
that-
pick that and pick a different one.
This whole thing to them.
Yeah, basically, so this says the MAC is actually 4 races. It starts Point Betsy, Glacier, then Grace Reef. Finish it. I guess it's 3, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way.
Bridge to the finish.
Oh yeah, sorry, bridge to finish, right? Right. I think that's a good way to segment what you're actually trying to do because each of these segments have different dynamics that are consistent year to year, depending on the weather. And again, it's kind of like when you're putting in the race like into your GPS, like you can't just go from Chicago to Mackinac Island. Like you have to figure out like what you're actually rounding and kind of think of it almost a little bit like a buoy race in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Like a what?
like a buoy race, just like getting from point A to point B to C, because you're just
Define the 4 races.
yeah. So Chicago was at Point Betsy. Point Betsy to Grays Reef to the bridge, and then a bridge to the finish. And yeah, I think that's the way that we think of it. And that's just kind of putting in all of the planning, all of the weather forecasting, for using charting software or whatever it is. And-
Talk about boat prep.
yeah.
What do you guys do for boat prep?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, when we think about then the race and we're starting to think about how we're actually going to try to execute, it really starts, it probably starts like at least a month out with just the logistics of like, how do you get the people together? How do you get all the stuff you need to actually do the race, complying with the regulations, getting people in charge of coming up with, getting food, water, all the equipment, checking all the safety of this stuff. And then, when we get into maybe the 1 to 2 weeks out, then we start kind of checking the longer term weather forecasts. And, kind of going from the pressure maps all the way down to like regional and then like local weather, at least for the first segment of the race. So the Chicago to Point Betsy part, because everything's going to change, every single day, kind of leading up to that point. And for us, like, we try to give people different roles. So, there's some people that are good at kind of the logistical part, and then it'd be like me and Craig, and maybe if Brian's on the race, or some combination of all of us kind of thinking about like the actual racing part of coming up with the initial thoughts around strategy and where we want to be, when we want to be there, and what we're actually going to be looking for to kind of execute the first segment of the race. What you guys have any different approach?
I ignore the weather until Thursday.
Yep.
I ignore it, because the problem is, it just drives everyone bananas, and you're sitting there and, oh, it's gonna blow 40, it's gonna blow 50, it's gonna be 0. And then the next day, all the models change. So, but we don't bother looking at the weather, but we do engage in a very sort of aggressive boat prep thing. We create lists. I don't delegate as much to different crew members. I don't allow anyone to bring food on the boat other than me. Because I tried that once before, and then everybody brings different things, and nobody brings exactly the right thing. And it's more of a pain in the butt to try to tell everyone what to bring than just go buy it and do it yourself. I mean, I know that's micromanagerial, but on a boat, like, space is everything. It's hard in 10, I would think, is even tougher than the Ericsson 35, right? So you have limited cooler space, you have limited space for stuff. And so one of the things we do in the boat prep is we tear everything off the boat the weekend before. We pull absolutely everything off that will come off. You know how stuff is, stuff sits in the boat, and you bring it on, and it's the wine that somebody brought on that you don't really drink. They're still sitting in the cooler. We'll get rid of all that stuff. We pull everything out. We wash the inside. By the way, fighting boat bacteria is a good thing, right? I mean, so it's not scuzzy on the race. And then we put stuff back deliberately, and then we do our gear check, because the MAC committee has been kind enough to give us a long list of stuff we got to take. So we usually will do that after that piece of it. So that's what we kind of do in terms of boat prep. And like I said, the weather, I until Thursday.
For boat prep, I want the whole crew involved. I want everybody to know everything that's on the boat and where it goes. So at the beginning of the season, I put the 2 days, generally 2 weekend days, that everybody needs to be there and we're working on the boat together. Because I want everybody to know where everything is, especially safety equipment. I always used to put all the safety equipment or everything that I could on starboard. S is for safety, is for starboard, so that when you're in a panic situation, everybody knows where to start looking for
All the
something.
safety equipment on my boat is now on starboard.
It was kind enough to raise, I think, 3 maximum.
Yeah, so, because when you panic, one of the things that I want to do in boat prep is to make sure that everybody knows exactly how to work the radio and what to say. So if that means making little tape arrows on the important buttons on the radio or on the chart plotter, so that when you're in a panic situation, you go down and you press where the red tape is, right? That kind of stuff. I'm really big on doing the actual man overboard drills, and multiple times, not with a life jacket, not on your way out to the race course. We all know what has happened in the past 20 years on the Mac race. And I take those man overboard drills very seriously. If I can, it's best to have someone, like the second time, third time through, you're all eating lunch, somebody jump off the boat. Spinnaker up, everybody's got a sandwich, you're chit-chatting, somebody needs to jump off the boat.
Should be the skipper.
It should be the skipper, or the skipper needs to be down below, or whatever. I mean, it's very important to do those.
Do you
For-
do the drill at night?
I have not done the drill
We
at night. Probably should, Ron, probably should, but I haven't. Food prep, I used to have a gathering at my house prior to the MAC, and I would assign people the food to bring, but it was very specific because it's such limited quantities. Recently I've sailed on boats who said everybody bring their own food. And just keep it small and simple and, not, so that everybody had their own dinners whenever they wanted to eat it or whatever. So whichever way you do, you've got to organize how much quantity comes on board. Yeah. It's an interesting concept. There was something else I was gonna say.
Can I ask a
Can't
question?
remember. Yeah.
How many of you wind up with way too much food when you get to Mackinac?
Yeah, the question
All of
was,
you, right?
yeah, the question was who ends up with extra food? So let's talk prep food real quick. We have a menu. We've adjusted the menu over the years, but we basically kind of solicit from the crew, make sure that they're okay to eat the menu. We're not gonna kill anyone with an allergy. But we cook all the food, and then we, vacuum seal it and freeze it. And then, we prepare it, hot meal, I think once or twice during the match, as long as the weather permits. I see you back there, I'll come to you. In terms of boat prep, so probably a month out, just like Eddie said, a month out, I'm on the boat and I'm looking at everything that's in a load pack. Right, so I'm looking at anything that's gonna take load and I'm putting my eyes on it and I'm making sure that it looks good. We've had all sorts of stuff that I find when we do that. I'm checking the stanchions to make sure all the little set screws are in there. I'm checking all the ring dings to make sure they're taped. We typically pull the tape off of them and retape them. Checking the lifelines. I learned expensively this year to check your flares. I didn't check my flares early enough, and I said a lot of bad things about West Marine. But one of the good things about West Marine is you can buy flares from them. It's kind of a pain in the ass to buy flares now, and Crowley's runs out, and they're about the only place you can buy flares that are Mac.
He's got them.
So you
Yeah,
gotta,
now.
but try to buy them 2 days before.
Yeah.
And Nick's got a different story for you. So, I think I ended up now, I have 2 sets of Mac flares at home because we ordered them from everyone we could. So be careful with the flares. Go check the boat, make sure everything that's gonna take a load looks good, is tight. You need to zip tie all of your hasps or your shackles.
Mhm.
All your shackles have a little hole in them and they should either be safety wired or zip tied so that they don't work their way out. We had the shackle that holds the block for the boom come off during a buoy race, like the shackle just wiggled itself off and my boom went flying over into mutiny, I think. So maybe you don't need to. Yeah, you don't need
Yeah.
to. So you gotta make sure all that stuff is in good shape. And then halyards, so halyards, I was gonna mention halyards and backstay. Halyards, backstay, and forestay. So I replace my forestay on a time window. I don't wait till it looks bad. I just replace it on a time window. Maybe that's neurotic, but my biggest fear, other than hurting someone, is the rig comes down. And we were one boat over from, was it Sapphire? They got dismasted 2 years ago. I watched their mast snapping out. Like, it's terrifying. So forestay we replace on the schedule, backstay we replace on the schedule. We just don't screw it. And I think that's important. That standing rigging is expensive, but it has a really important job. Really, really
More
important
expensive
job.
to not do it.
Yep, and then, Nancy helped us with some really good habits. We half-assed the drills for a long time. And I was always driving during the drill. And she's like, when this goes south, it's not gonna be you driving. It's gonna be something else, or you're the one that's gonna get knocked overboard. So she's like, what are you gonna do? So we had the least experienced person drive during the drills. We had a new person join us on the Mac 2 years ago, Emily, and she drove all the drills this year. And that's a great way for them to learn where the equipment is, et cetera. Come to you, but there was a question.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear from the 4 of you, or like your number 1 top food recipe.
The question is, what's your number 1 top food recipe for the Mac? I make pulled pork. I like that. We make pulled pork sandwiches.
You did your tenderloin.
Smoked pork tenderloin with plum chutney and Arapahoe vert packaged ahead of time.
It's very good cold.
Beef chili.
Can you get more specific?
More recently, we've kind of gone to like REI and gotten those camping meals, like the dehydrated camping meals. Which are, I mean, for us, it kind of satisfies a lot of things. It's lightweight because it's dehydrated. It's very calorie and nutrient rich. So like when you're making these meals, like, you kind of don't know like how much you're actually eating during the race because you're awake for. I mean, our watch schedule is like you're up for 4 hours, you're sleeping for 3 hours, and you just keep on doing that. And you don't know like if you're eating enough, and it kind of gets into actually like just crew longevity. So it actually forces you to eat a lot of calories, that you're probably burning just, thinking and doing stuff and sitting in the sun or living at night. Yeah, it's been great for us.
How do you manage the weight that crew brings aboard for their sailing companies on the race? And how do you minimize that?
So the question is, how do you minimize the extra weight that a crew brings for equipment and whatever?
They're bringing.
Well, generally speaking, like we kind of have created a pretty basic like packing list of, only bring a handful of, a couple shirts and your follow other gear and your safety equipment, obviously. Change of socks, a hat, gloves, all that kind of stuff to at least provide a framework of like kind of the bare minimum. But for the most part, we also just, again, kind of in the prep part of the race, make it very clear like we want as little extra weight as possible. So everyone's already in the mindset of, okay, how do I kind of minimize what I'm bringing?
So we have a little bit of a different view on our boat. Of course, our boat weighs double what a tartan does, so I guess it's okay.
Is it only double?
Is it what?
Only double?
It's only double here, yeah. So I think it's one of the things that we think about, I think a little differently than a lot of boats. This is not your standard buoy race. Okay, I mean, this is a much different animal, and I think a lot of folks treat it like a buoy race. And so at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that you've got to make happen that you don't need to worry about in a buoy race. You've got to worry about interpersonal interactions far more than any other buoy race. Like if somebody's a jerk on your boat, like you can may be able to deal with it for 3 hours, but if it's 75 or 80 hours, it'll be a problem. If people don't have the gear that they really want to bring, it's probably not going to they're not going to be pissed off for 3 hours. But if they're out there and they don't bring the whole sweater that they really wanted to bring and now it's out there, so it's a problem, right? So we might end up being probably more permissive than a lot of boats in terms of gear. They all know the drill. They don't want us to bring a lot of weight. They all want to win too, right? But we're not as aggressive as a lot of places saying you only must bring this, because it just grinds people's gears at some point. Now, I've got a guy who brings like a big body bag with him. Then I'll probably like give him a lot of shit for it, right? Like, well, what's in is there a body in there? But for the most part, our guys bring what they want to bring. And if somebody's got 4 pounds of extra gear, you're not going to lose the race because of it. That's kind of our view.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely was always my view. I want people to be comfortable on the rail, whether it's boiling hot or freezing cold. Everybody that I always race with on my boat, I had the same mindset. We want to win. You're not going to bring more than you need. You're not bringing a stereo in your bag. So I always told people to be comfortable. Does anybody remember Holland Capper in the T10 fleet? Holland famously would saw the handle off his toothbrush.
You only have half a toothbrush.
You'll have half a toothbrush because he was so adamant about not having weight. However, he would then use a Bunsen burner and bring a skillet to do scrambled eggs on Sunday morning. So you're like, really? So it's a trade-off.
We let's see, we do a couple things. So there's a Helly Hansen bag that's, I don't know what size, maybe it's 20 liters. It's the second and third prize bag that you get at the gym.
30-liter Helly Hansen.
Yeah, it's the perfect little Mac bag. So we kind of tell people, don't bring a bag bigger than that. We have packing checklists. We make the crew deliver their sea bags to the boat 2 days prior to the race. And I personally lift every one of them on the boat. And I'm not crazy about weight, but I mean, we had a gentleman sail with us that carried like a complete Neiman Marcus wardrobe. The dry suit and wetsuit and all this shit that weighed a ton, and it was a wardrobe change a lot. So that was a journey. So you got to be kind of just thoughtful. The other thing we do is we set up 3 sea berths to sleep in. You don't need 6 sleeping bags. Right. You need 3 sleeping bags, maybe. And then tell people to bring a pillow or whatever they're going to wad up and sleep on. I need a pillow to sleep on. I maintenance like that. So if you need a pillow, bring a pillow. But you don't need 3 sleeping bags. You don't need 3 sets of bedding. You can hot wrap a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Be okay. That's fine.
But yeah, the other part of it is if you don't already try to pack like a separate bag for like Mackinac Islands. So you're not carrying all the, like your
Oh,
island
yeah.
shows, like on the race with you, and that saves a lot.
And we send that up,
Space and then-
we send that up with shore crew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Find short crew, ask a friend, a favor.
Yeah.
Just so you're not having like double, like your Hawaiian shirt, your
Right.
flip flops, whatever.
They're on Greg's boat.
We don't break Hawaiian shirts.
Question?
Yes, thanks very much for the comments, Tony. I'm curious to skip this. Do you have a crew jerk test?
The crew jerk test.
Yes,
Continuously.
thank you for asking that.
Question.
Do we have a crew jerk test? The answer is this. It is very common. How many of you have sailed with pickup crews for like a race, like a day race? Okay, I would never do that. I would rather not do the MAC race than pick somebody I don't know. So on our boat,
100%.
the vetting process is very, it can. And I'm not looking, I don't need somebody who's a rock star sailor. In fact, I don't know that I want somebody who's a rock star sailor. The crew has to gel. I have to know what they're gonna bring on the boat. I have to know well up front that the guy's gonna bring a Neiman Marcus wardrobe a year before I ever invite him on the MAC race. So our crew, we will bring somebody out on a day race. It's gonna be years before they get on the MAC race, okay? So, and I would encourage you all to do the same thing. If you're say, oh, let's bring, so-and-so, they're a hot shot, don't do it. Like, I would much rather sail with a group of people that I know and that I like and that know me and that are willing to go the extra mile for our team than to bring on some like, oh, I'm, so-and-so hot shot and I've won a bunch of MAC races. It rarely works. I think one of the dynamics of the MAC race is that the team that's cohesive and gets along together does very, very well. I'll give you guys an example. That's none of us, right? In the cruising division, there was a boat this year called No Rush. Anybody from No Rush here? Good, okay. They're new. Right, they're pretty new to the whole MAC race. I think it was their first or second MAC race. They got a second in section. Why? They got along. They liked each other, sailed with each other all summer. There's no like sail makers on board or pros. They won well. I've got some boats in my section that are sailed by fully pro crews. Don't ask me why. But when you're a pro on a boat and it's a PT-32 or whatever it is, do you really care that much? Like, no, you want people that are with you the whole time who are personally invested in part of your family. I wouldn't sail the MAC if it wasn't for our team. So that's a long way of saying, yes, we have a massive jerk test. And maybe they're jerks, but we're all jerks together.
I think humility has a much better chance of winning.
Blane said, I think humility has a much better chance of winning the MAC. Yes. And I want a crew that has sailed together and has sailed in storms and has sailed overnight together. Because we want to know how they're going to react when the pressure's on.
Maybe it sounds hyperbolic, but people I trust my life with. If you are going to be in something that is very uncomfortable, the years that Nancy raced with us, we still have a saying. Whenever the weather would get really nasty, she's like, "Here, you wrecked your boat." It didn't matter, and so yeah, you gotta trust that people aren't gonna freak out. We've had two of our crew that started from zero and learned to do the MAC, and it's a thing, man. The Sunday scaries in the afternoon are for some people they have a little trouble with it. It's the Sunday scaries, at least on our boat, is by the time you get to Sunday, you're probably uncomfortable. You're probably tired. Someone's probably driving you. You didn't like what Blane cooked for dinner. You're sitting there going, why did I sign up for this? We're not going to get in until Tuesday. It's Sunday. Hot shit. We've got 2 more days. I don't really like sailing that much. I can't believe we decided to do this. The wind is blowing out of 18. If we do one more tack, I'm going to throw up. And I just finished throwing. It's Sunday afternoon for us is when people start kind of taking inventory of where they are and what they've gotten themselves into. And you got to get through it. And I think it happens on every boat. But I don't know. I'm curious if you guys had scaries.
Well,
maybe it's just
you
on
have
Target 10.
I would call it, I like the phrasing, the scaries. I think it's really, that's when it seems to be so hard to keep your head in the game.
Yeah.
And adding to your long litany, there's flies and it's hot. So.
Don't kill the flies.
Don't what?
Don't kill the flies.
It brings more flies. Yeah, don't kill the flies. The whole idea of the fly swatter and all that stuff, it just brings more flies. But it is true that that's when everybody has to keep their head in the game. And I think one of the most important things in sailing with any team is that people have to keep their head in the game. You have to know they have the concentration to do that. It's not easy. And I often say also, if it were easy, anybody could do it.
Can I lean over? So 3 years ago, we were in fourth place, I think, and Nancy was with us, and it was Sunday afternoon, and I looked at her and I'm like, what are we gonna do? Like, there's no way we're gonna win this race. And she looks at me and she goes, you can absolutely win this race, but everyone has to sail the boat from now until we cross the finish line. And she pulled the leash, and you need someone that can get you through that. And for me, it was Nancy, and then I did it this year with others. So the jerk test, make sure you've got someone that can get through Sunday and help pull the rest of the team through it. Because someone's gonna be sitting there questioning.
I remember that interaction. It was pretty cute because Blade's like, he's looking around us. He's like, we can't do this. He's like, yes, we can. Literally, I think 30 minutes went by. He's still looking around and he looked at me and said, how? And I said, sail the boat fast. That's how. And I do really think that things have shifted now that we have so much data at our fingertips. Used to be that it was more at the seat of your pants. And, back in the day, I'm going to get my cane out here, but when there were 25, 30 T10s doing the race and nobody had any data, the only thing we had would be Saturday morning, you get up early and you download from University of Wisconsin weather site, or you've gone to Tom Skilling the night before, because he used to do weather briefings.
Or the call in.
Or the call in on the grid, all you had was a few things. It was very different. Now, I think the name of the game is to always sail your boat at 100%. Because especially when you go back and you look at the tracking on Yellowbird, everybody tacks at the same time because it's said to do it. And literally the difference is going to be make heads in the game and sail the boat as fast as you can 24 hours a day. I think that's what makes the difference now.
I agree with that. And there's a couple of things about I like technology because it does the following. If you have a crew that, or you are looking at yellow brick half the time, right? I mean, frankly, who cares? I mean, I look at yellow brick, but I don't spend 12 hours a day on yellow brick. There are people that are staring at yellow brick big time. There's also people, one of my competitors, I saw her at the finish line, and I said, well, what's your job on boat? She said, my job is social media manager. I'm like, I don't have a social media manager. We don't have any social media accounts. Like Providence is not, there will be no social media discussions on Providence. Nobody's on social media. So I hope others are. But the other thing is expedition and weather and all this kind of stuff. There are people that if expedition tells you, or the router tells you to go between the Manitous, I don't mean outside or inside, I mean between the Manitous, they'll do it because the router says it. I mean, look, the odds of that being the right course are very, very, very low. So I would encourage you, those of you who are using routers, AI, it's all AI, they lie a lot. This year, the router told you to go stuff the boat into the Michigan beach, get 300 yards off the Michigan beach and tack up the beach. The problem is that the AI, whatever bots are running it, don't know that when you're on the Michigan beach, the wind bends around and then creates a very unfavorable northerly wind. So anytime you've got any kind of expedition, I wouldn't follow it all that closely. I would ask yourself, why is the router wanting me to go do all this? Like, you better have a good reason why it makes sense. 30, 40% of the time, it's all just noise. And then you run the router 3 hours later and it changes. So I think anybody who follows expedition or whatever religiously, I don't do that.
That's why so Expedition is routing software. I don't know if folks know that, right? Expedition is routing software created by navigators for navigators. A professional navigator is not going to blindly follow a computer system. A professional navigator is professional, and they use the routing tool as a tool. It's one of the things that they take into the calculus. And being a navigator is a lot more than just blindly following along. You gotta be a weather person, you gotta have experience. So I think people are like, oh, I'm gonna get Expedition and I'm gonna follow the route and I'm gonna win. Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. So Ed, maybe we put you on the spot. What do you guys do for in-race weather?
That's what I was just going to ask. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So we are I don't know, maybe infamously like low tech on our boat, so we don't have satellite weather. We don't have Starlink, basically. We will, again, kind of do all the forecasting prep ahead of the race. Obviously, you kind of almost immediately sometimes throw that away when you're on the race course because things just don't line up with what you thought they'd be. And if we're in range of like cell reception on shore, we'll continue to try to access weather data, download great data, whatever, and maybe run it through some of the running software just to see like how the software trends in terms of what it's trying to tell you what to do. But then again, yeah, trying to figure out like why is it telling you to do that, and what are we actually looking for in terms of changes in forecast, changes in wind direction, speed, and whatnot. On the race, and I think that's kind of interesting to the first part of this whole discussion with AIS is that because we're in T10s, we're typically someone's going to be in front of another fleet's going to be in front of us. So I think for us, like we kind of look at maybe like the 36-7s, who are like slightly faster than us. And we'll kind of see like where the 36-7 fleet is spread out on the AIS charts. Look at, is this boat going, inshore? Is this boat going offshore? Like what speeds are they going? And try to like discern from like the dispersion of fleets in front of us what the weather is actually doing up the lake. And try to figure out, okay, is that weather going to be there when we get there? What's changing? What should we avoid? What should we try to hook into? And that's almost in a way like as real time as we are able to discern because we do have data points of all these amigos transmitting AIS data from us.
So Ed was talking about low tech, don't discount picking up the weather radio and listening to the weather in various locales near you, because listening to what their wind is, where it's from, and what the speed is can give you a whole lot of data also. It's very low tech, but it can work. Greg, you mentioned before that you don't start looking at the weather till Thursday night. I'm a little different than that. I actually start watching system-related patterns at least 2 weeks before, so that you have a general idea of, I listened to WGN. Tom Skilling back in the day was amazing for the kind of information he gives you on every 9 p.m., 10 p.m. broadcast. But knowing what if you watch the general systems, you get an idea of where the jet stream is and sort of, are the storms running south of us? Are they running right across the lake? Are they mainly going north of us? This stuff is stuff that you can start internalizing a couple of weeks before the race. And so you have a general idea of where the weather systems are coming from. And I mean, I remember one year, I think it was 2018, maybe. It was 2018, right? And the weather systems were running right down the lake, all of June and July, just coming at you right down the lake. And if anybody remembers that race, that was a solid upwind race. It was, I thought it was a great race. So,
It was hell.
yeah.
It was pure hell.
Yeah, it was tough driving. But I had
Upwind 300, however many miles.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
awful. 25 knots upwind. But I like driving waves. It's like skiing down the moguls.
Never get a root.
But I kind of figured that out at least 2 weeks before the race. Like this is going to be an interesting, and it proved out. Now, lots of times this doesn't do you any good at all, but I like starting to internalize the way the patterns are coming down the lake.
I'm glad I didn't internalize it. I would have been like.
You wouldn't have done it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018 was my wife's first time.
Yeah.
She still comes, but.
Were you married at the time?
I was married.
That's lucky.
All right, we're talking a lot about weather, so maybe I'll share and we can ask others here. So I pay for weather. I pay for Predict Wind. I don't know if you guys do or not, guys and gals. I think it's pretty helpful. It has a router in it.
Yeah.
I'd probably start routing 3 days out for the Mac in Predict Wind. What I'm looking for in Predict Wind is they have 5 or 6 different models. Maybe it's more than that. But I'm looking for the models to convert. That means I want to see like the Euro model and the GFS model telling me kind of the same thing. Or the UK model is okay, the Euro model. So what happens is when you start like 6 days out on the weather router, it'll route for the different models. So it shows you the optimal route based on the 5 or 6 different models, and you'll see it looks like a spaghetti chart to begin with, and in each route is very distinct. And then as you rerun the model, you see the routes usually start to converge. So I use that as a guideline, and I kind of try to think about like, maybe I'll stay between the GFS and the Euro model, and kind of look and see where it's saying which part of the lake to play. On the chart plotter side, we have XM. We did that 5 years ago. I think XM is really good because you get to see the radar. So at least you can see the punishment coming off the Wisconsin shore. We used to just,
Only particulate. You won't see a front coming, you'll only see if there's particulate in the air.
Precipitation.
but you can see the precipitation, it'll show you the color.
What?
It's pretty helpful. The other piece, that's nice about XM is it gives you the lake buoys. So you can get the data off the North Michigan Lake buoy and the Center Lake buoy. And I think that's pretty cool.
And you can read the NOAA weather forecast in any zone.
That's right.
Sorry, you can read the NOAA weather forecast in any zone. So what you can do is you can say, what's the weather forecast gonna be in the Manitous? And if in the Manitous, they say, light winds, that's never good, right? And then offshore, they're talking about, southwest of 10 to 15. Well, then maybe you do go outside the Manitous. But when they say light winds in there, it's not gonna be a fun night generally. So that's a good thing to be. You pick that up on XM. Oh, sorry.
You can test those buoys, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All of these, each has a serial number and
Dive buoy.
they'll test you back.
Yeah, there's just so much data available now, and part of it is what to listen to and how to pay attention to it. So, what else does anyone?
I
want to talk
saw
about?
hands up. Does anybody have, yeah, sure, go ahead.
So actually, two things. One, plug the bottom of your ice box drain. The cold air goes down and the warm air goes up, and then Mac, I don't know, 4 years ago was 95. Cooler never got. And the other thing is, when you're doing your man overthrower drill and have your inexperienced driver driving, keep your head out of the way.
So the comments in the room were, plug the drain to your cooler so that it keeps your cold food cold longer, because it'll stay cold at the bottom longer. And then the other comment was, if you've got your inexperienced crew, driving during the drills, keep your head down and don't get hit by the boom.
So I think Peter mentioned that dry ice is killer if you can get it. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Chicago used to have it. Columbia used to have it. This year, nobody had it.
Columbia did have it.
Did they have it this year?
Columbia has.
Then I screwed up to get it from Columbia this year. There's a place on the
Blane.
south side that you can get it.
Blane ice.
Yeah, but like 14 pounds of dry ice will keep your whole cooler
20 pounds.
totally freezing. Not a tea time will keep your food frozen solid until you get there.
Also, go ahead.
the
Yeah,
Jewel
there's
and,
other questions.
on, Howard and Kedzie. The Jewel and Howard and Kedzie.
That's good.
As dry.
They sell dry ice there. I mean, dry ice is, you think Chicago Yacht Club would sell dry ice, but
You'd think.
I mean, they used to, what can you do? Yeah, question.
No concerns about the carbon dioxide buildup inside the boat with the dry ice?
No.
There's plenty of hot air.
It's vented.
Yeah.
Here's another tip on I think on the map. So, when you're doing your buoy race or whatever, you've got your best driver driving, right? A lot of people do this on the Mac race. I have one of my competitors, great sailor, drives 3 hours and 40 minutes of every 4-hour shift. And then he takes a 20-minute break and then somebody else drives. We don't do that at all. I think the more people you have that can drive, that they can do lots of different things, the stronger you're gonna be. If you have somebody on your boat that's like, all their job is to be a spinnaker trimmer, I don't think it's optimal. I think if you have 8 people on the boat and you can have 8 drivers and 8 spinnaker trimmers, I think you are going to be a lot steadier performance-wise than somebody who's like, I'm a helmsman, or I'm the navigator, or I'm the spinnaker trimmer. I mean, on a 70-foot boat, maybe you can do that. All of our folks can do everything except my father's not a foredeck guy. He's not, and the one other guy that's his age is not a foredeck guy. They would complain if we made him do that. But for the most part, everybody else can do foredeck. Yeah. What do you guys do on that?
Oh, I agree. More drivers the better. So I guess that this goes into maybe race prep
Mhm.
in general and just crew selections. Like you want as many people who can drive, as competently as possible. And if you had the ideal driving at night, it's kind of like probably the most important aspect of the actual race, in my opinion. So
Do you-
more drivers.
Do you rotate people on a regular basis?
Yeah,
on
so,
their jobs?
yeah, so for our race, you know. In recent years, we've been trying to sail with as few people as possible, but so many people want to do it, so we end up usually racing 6 or 7 people. And we will try to stick to a fairly strict sleeping shift schedule. So we'll have typically 4 people awake, 3 people sleeping at all times, even like, even from the get-go, from the start. Awake for 4 hours, sleeping for 3 hours, I think is what it is, with one person kind of shifting off like every single hour. And even though it, like people want to be awake or just can't go to sleep, like this is really for us like playing the long game of having as fresh of a crew for the whole duration of the race as possible, especially for Sunday and Monday and Tuesday or wherever it might be.
Tuesday.
As possible. And I've like personally, like when I first started racing, like I found it impossible to go to sleep, and I would actually like sit for days at a time, which is wildly unhealthy. But as I'm older, I've really tried to force myself to sleep. So that's for me or for some of our crews, like bringing like sleep masks and earplugs, making sure like you're truly trying to create like as much of a sleeping environment as possible. In addition to, again, eating enough, making sure you're eating enough, making sure you're drinking enough water.
And not just junk food.
And not just junk food. Yes.
Real food.
This goes back into like, comfort and mental, acuity, and just kind of maintaining as much performance as possible of everyone.
Hang on a second. We got a question in the back there.
I was just wondering if you could go through the rotation. Are you doing, like the AB, everybody switches at the same time, or does
Sure. So for us, we switch off one person every hour. So it's usually 4 people. If we have 7 people, 4 people awake, 3 people sleeping. So that goes, like 4 people, like 4 hours awake, 3 hours sleeping. So in a 24-hour day, I think you end up sleeping like 9 hours or something like that. And if depending on how many drivers you have, that's kind of the hard part on our boat. If we have a full crew, we'll have at least 3 drivers, if not like 4 like actual full-time drivers. And so we will try to have a driver go off like every other hour or whatever it is. So there's at least one driver awake, if not 2. And then even for driving, we'll probably switch drivers every like hour or 2, just to keep the driver like fresh and mentally sane.
And spinnaker trip.
And spinnaker trip. Basically just trying to keep everyone mentally fresh.
So on our boat, we don't, that's called the Swedish, what Ed does is a Swedish watch system. We tried it, it doesn't work. For us, because there's disruption every hour in the cabin, right? So we do 4 on, 4 off, every 4 hours. And then we have 8 drivers on the boat. They're not all rated for the same level of, I mean, if it's blowing 30 southwest wind, I'm probably driving more than I would like. But for the most part, everybody's able to drive. And frankly, if it's a nice night, day, whatever, I'm going to try my best to not drive at all. I would take your best drivers and let them sit around and, do nothing for the first day, especially if you know something is coming where it's going to start blowing 30 and you're going to be hearing, the Hawaii 5-0 soundtrack with the 12-foot waves behind you. So that's what we do.
It is important for people to go below and get out of the sun and the elements, even if they're not technically sleeping, but just resting below is key. And we were talking about the crew dynamics. To avoid any conflict or insult, we establish ahead of time that every driver will be on for an hour and sail trimmers will be on for 30 minutes. And then it is a mandatory rotation because you don't want to tell somebody it's time to it's time to get off. Yeah. So it's predetermined.
We do that.
Yeah.
You now.
The rest thing is really important. So we kind of
You don't
hurt our,
talk for too long.
we kind of hurt our brain this year. We took 8 people on a T10, which is speeds. We had 3 bunks and then we had 3 drivers. And so it made it really hard to do a watch system. So I tried with ChatGPT for hours and I got an answer. This is complicated from AI. So
Need more drivers.
well, we need more drivers and we didn't have them. So what we ended up doing this year is we made sure that the drivers could sleep. And then we kind of rotated the crew around the drivers. And it was okay, but the last day the crew was up for a little too long. And it was a tough race this year, right? So I think it's really important to keep your drivers fresh. We also do an hour at night and rotate. I think Nancy got us into that. And that's one of the things I was gonna mention. That's a little bit. Oh, I got it. When you go below deck, if you're not gonna sleep, at least rest. And I don't know if anyone is a Huberman fan, but he has this thing called non-sleep deep rest. Go watch that video on YouTube, and it actually works. You can actually put yourself in a pretty restorative state without sleeping, and it makes a huge difference.
What video?
It's a guy named Andrew Huberman. He has a Huberman Labs podcast. He's a neuroscientist, and the technique is called non-sleep deep rest. And special forces are trained in it, and it's a way for them to rest and restore their body when they can't get physical sleep.
He has a song.
Do that on the rail.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So yeah, sorry, I was just gonna comment, like the watch system is just a framework. Like, you try to operate within it, but the reality is like, yeah, the circumstances change. Like if it's especially calm, like easy sailing, like yeah, everyone who can catch some sleep, like go take a nap. Like if you only need like 1 or 2 people like sailing the boat, like everyone else should be sleeping. On the flip side, if it's storm or like 20, 30 knots and you need everyone on the rail, like no one's potentially.
Yeah.
And everyone's on the rail. Like the idea is like you want to default to people getting as much rest as possible.
There's one other thing that we haven't talked about yet, and that's what we call maintaining boat husbandry. On a Waukegan race, right? I mean, things are not going to get all bollocked up down below. In a Mac race, especially if it's windy or rain or whatever, if there's a thunderstorm, there's all kind of people got their foul weather gear strewn all over the place, and people get sloppy right in the middle of a Mac race. People forget their dirty socks are sitting there, and I would maintain order very aggressively. And so, to the extent that you can sort of police everyone's putting their stuff away. Drying stuff out is good. We bring a bottle of Fantastic and hit the cabin sole in the middle of the race because it generates a level of kind of cleanliness that I think makes life a little bit easier. But maintaining order is good because on Monday night, when you're in the straits and you're banging around and you're trying to find something and everything's sort of in the wrong place, it's very aggravating because you are probably overtired. Everyone's going to start snapping at each other. And if everything's in the right place at the right time, at least you have some chance of avoiding that.
For some of us, cleaning can be a great way of dissipating that nervousness that can build up too. My crew used to laugh that I could clean the whole boat with one wet once. And this is what I do when I get nervous is I start straightening and tidying and cleaning. Yeah, I got to do something. And there's no TV to watch and you're not going to crochet. So,
So, you have Starlink, maybe now you can have.
I suppose, but boat cleanliness is, I think, important, and putting things back where they need to be so that you can find them if you need to is key.
My first and second Mac race, I didn't own the boat, and people would just throw their shit everywhere. And so you'd come down the companionway and you couldn't get through the boat. So when we owned the boat, my rule is I have to be able to walk from the companionway to the bow at all times. And if someone's shit's in my way, it's going to be removed, and I'm going to ask them to remove it, right? So it's important. If you're in a storm or things go south, it typically happens pretty quick. And if you need to get to a piece of equipment, someone's got their dirty socks or they put a tool back in the wrong place, it can be a very dangerous thing. So I think what do you call it? Boat husbandry.
We call it boat husbandry.
Keeping stuff clean and orderly is important, and it can be. Are there other questions that you all have that you want to hear topics about? So
There's a hand over there.
I just want to add with stuff being just thrown down below, it's really easy for somebody in a hurry to slip on a hat that somebody has just tossed below. And you lose your footing and bang, now you have an injured crew. We should probably talk about seasickness management. Okay, who has questions?
Oh, just real quick, what was that YouTube, the no sleep?
It's Andrew Huberman, and the YouTube is about non-sleep deep rest. I'll put a link in the AIS presentation. Okay.
I put it on our T10 Facebook page.
So you touched on that, the current dynamic and like getting motivated. If you can just like talk more a bit about the motivation, how to, like, when you don't have crew that's self-motivated, how you put the more motivation in them, or how to manage it.
With them.
The question is, how do you motivate a crew that doesn't come aboard as being self-motivated? I don't know how to answer that. I guess it starts early in the season. And you have to plant the idea that you can win this. And it's important for everyone to be on their A game so that you can win.
The MAC is an endurance sport, and some people are not suited for endurance sports. So if you can't self-motivate yourself, I don't think you should be. I don't want you on my boat.
Well, yeah.
You have to have the ability, and everyone has their scaries, but you got to be able to get through it. So
There's no guarantee.
I don't so much have a jerk test, but I asked, like, is this person going to be able to stay with it and be a productive member of the crew for 3.5 days? Right? It's a judgment call.
I think you don't do it with that, is the honest answer. I mean, I'm not actively motivating anyone on the boat. I mean, everyone on the boat is actually a little more obsessed. Well, maybe that's not good. Most people on the boat might be just as obsessed with winning as I am, right? My father is like, well, are we winning? But then when I say, okay, we have to sit on the rail, then he gets grumpy about it. But, which is fine, I get it. I mean, it's fine. But if your crew is not internally motivated, why would you do it?
Right.
It would be a miserable experience. So my advice would be to fire the crew and get somebody else. Now, think about, though, if the whole crew is not motivated, we have to ask ourselves why. Are they afraid? Are they bored? I mean, is the dynamic something that a crew would, get into? And so you might even say, do you guys really want to go to Mackinac, right? Maybe the answer is, gee, I'd like to do the Mackinac race, but I want to do more than like be a main trimmer. So if you can get to the heart of why they don't have internal motivation, then you can solve for that. That's fine. But if my crew is not internally motivated, I'd go take a cruise to Alaska. I wouldn't bother. What do you think?
Yeah, I probably agree with most of it. I mean, I guess it's more like, if you find yourself in the situation all of a sudden that a crew is not motivated. I mean, part of it is, trying to figure out if there's a solution at the time. So, again, like, why are they not motivated? Maybe part of the solution could be maybe like delegating a task, or at least like engaging them with something that, might need to be done, whether it's like, oh, we can use a pair of meals, or can you help them with the forecast or
You got a point on eating. Like, I think people forget that they didn't eat enough. So I'll get back to your comment, but Ed's point was make sure that people eat. People forget
Real food.
They forget that they didn't eat, or maybe they didn't eat enough. And so if you see someone bonking, it's like physiological. Like, are they hungry? Do they need water? Did they not sleep last night? Did you run the motor like during their sleeping interval and they didn't get? So I think I think it's important to be thoughtful.
And water's a big deal. People get really drained if they don't drink enough water. And, frankly, women are notorious for this because there's different issues here, but you have to make sure that everybody stays hydrated. Probably more important than eating.
One other thing on motivation, there are the concept of rituals on a macros. Okay, I mean, I think if you have certain rituals and things that you do, it really does generate a lot of motivation and make people interested in doing it. My mom used to make all the cookies for the Mac race, and she passed away 14 years ago. And I make all the same cookies, right? And we do it the Wednesday before the Mac, and it's a big thing. I think and people eat the cookies in the middle of the race. We take a shot of rum, going around Bellevue 3, right, to commemorate my mom. We have a crew dinner at the end, and spouses are invited to come, and we encourage the spouses and such to come up. And I think that all kind of contributes to a culture. So if you can think about ways to make it more family friendly and include spouses and kids. And we have like 14 kids running around at Mackinac Island and 40 people at the dinner.
Honestly, you got a lot of fucking people.
I agree.
14 kids?
Yeah, I agree. And that's true at 9 o'clock in the morning or noon. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of crews with kids and they bring friends with kids. And so if you end up with a party at the end, that can be motivating for people in a way that it might not be motivating for me.
Question?
You mentioned water. Water's heavy at 8 pounds a gallon, and it's also essential. I was curious, how do you figure out the water budget? Do you adjust your water budget based on the forecast? Do you pull water out of the lake? How do you guys manage water?
So,
Like,
yeah, so we do, lake walk. So we, again, I guess, go to REI, get like one of those gravity filters for us that works. Basically, you just scoop the water directly into the gravity filter bag. It'll filter, I think, like, a couple gallons in like 5 minutes or something. And you just keep on doing it. We have like water jugs that will just continuously refill. Again, if someone's, if the race is easy, someone's bored, someone needs something to do, like, yeah, help filter more water, get more water. And then, again, to the point of like keeping people hydrated and eating, like we'll have someone on the boat, like forcing people to like drink water and eat, eat this granola bar, eat the sandwich. Here's
So you're all for pulling water out of the
Yeah,
lake?
we have 4 gallons,
Filters.
4 gallon jugs. We start with them full, and we have a backpacking water filter, and we pump and filter.
Same.
We use light straws. So you've got a water bottle, you take the water bottle, you dump it into the lake, you turn the top, and you suck it down. It's very, very good. And it actually tastes better than you could ever imagine. Pretty easy.
So another option that I implemented years ago is if you have a pressurized water system on your boat, you get a Seagull water filter. It's a carbon block. I had it independently tested, it's fine with VC 17 on your bottom. And it only weighs about 1.5 pounds, the whole filter. It's a little canister. And then you got a little spigot. You got fresh water all the time, unlimited.
There's a hand in the back.
They're under $400 for the whole system.
Yeah, hand way in the back. Yeah, stand up and yell though, because
Before you get off the topic of crew motivation, and you were talking about some factors there that might create. I wonder what you think about, especially at night, environmental things like the weather and, people maybe not being dressed appropriately as the weather changes and you go into the wee hours in the morning and it's really cold. And now all of a sudden the crew's not motivated on the rail because they're cold. And making sure that people get properly geared up for the whole evening, or, as the weather changes, and maybe just instead of sitting on the rail, getting them actually active and doing it a little bit, they warm up, because at the back on the helm, it's a lot warmer.
So the point in the room is, what do you do to make sure people are dressed appropriately for the weather conditions? And knowing that the back of the boat is a lot warmer than the front of the boat. That goes back to the comments I think we were making about how much you let people bring, and you have to let them bring what's going to make them comfortable on the rail, especially in the cold. I think watch changes are a great time for people to go down below and at least bring up all their gear for what they're going to need in the next phase. Because if the sun goes down, it's going to be getting a lot colder. And so making people go down and be prepped ahead of time. If a storm is coming, everybody goes down in shifts and gets ready for the storm, even if it's hot. It's coming, you got to have your gear on and be ready to go.
I think for us, like a recent game changer has been, we've like started to bring a jet boil on the boat just to like have hot water. So the jet boil, gives you hot water, goes into like the dehydrated meals, like for, hot meal, like probably, for dinner usually. We'll have, like the Starbucks, like instant coffee packs. So, it's cold at night, make yourself a hot coffee. We have instant oatmeal. It's cold in the morning, make yourself a hot oatmeal. I mean, just like mentally, it helps a lot because, you've been freezing and you just want something to warm you up, something that tastes good and, again, like hydrating or giving yourself nutrients. Just mentally it's great, physically it's great. So, T10, hot water, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good.
I have another one. There is a fine line between having especially in light air, having the crew move around too much on the boat, because on the size of a T10, it matters. You feel it in the helm. And if people are constantly up and down on the back of the boat, you're like, oh my God, sit down. Just let the boat get some speed here. But if they're cold or hungry, help the crew to try to manage, like, can one person go below and bring up things for people? I think Hannah was always great about coming up with her pockets stuffed full of snacks, and people would be like, I would like to have some chips. And Hannah would be like, here you go. She had everything ready to go for everybody. And it's just important to manage the constant movement on the boat, but you need people to be comfortable. So encourage them to team up on some of that.
We call it the snack petition. It's a role.
Yeah.
It's important. We want to talk medical stuff real quick. It's tough. We haven't,
Good
we
point.
haven't gone.
One thing I'll just, before we do medical, one thing that I do is I get up on the rail. I mean, I think one of the things that's demotivating is if the skipper's in the back of the boat driving and the crew's on the rail. So if it's the middle of the night, like I'll be at the front, up on the rail. And frankly, I'll be able to tell how rough it is and how bad it is and how people go below. So we do that. Coffee's a big deal on Providence. We drink coffee
Coffee and
extensively.
cookies.
Lots of coffee, lots of cookies. That will get you there. So let's talk about medical stuff.
Yeah. So medical wise, the med kit that we carry for the Mac is bigger than our buoy med kit. And you need some extra stuff, frankly. So I think we bought like one of the survival med kits that you can get from Amazon. They come in a red zipper case. And it's got kind of everything you need in it. That's a really good way to get started with the right stuff. We had a nurse race with us a couple years, Sarah Otto, and so she was really good about going through the med kit and making sure all the expired stuff was replaced, because typically people buy it and then you try to go use the tape or something that's 10 years old and it's been wet 3 times and it doesn't work. So that's been good. We paid more attention to that. And then in the last 2 years, the boat has prescriptions. So we have a physician that prescribes certain stuff to me that we keep on the boat. We keep nausea medication is one of the things we keep. And we keep some kind of lightweight antibiotics just in case. So that's another thing you can think about. Real offshore races will typically have some deeper medical equipment on board, but if you have someone that's really, really sick, having anti-nausea meds on the boat could be something that makes a really big difference, because once they start puking, they get dehydrated, and once one person starts, they're gonna drag others down with them. So just be thoughtful. Seasickness is another one. Everybody can get seasick. 2018, I was seasick for half the race.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep. And I was like delusional by the 3rd day. So you got to just be thoughtful of that. Seasickness will take you out. And once you're sick, good luck.
Yeah, our crew doesn't get seasick. The last time we did it was 15 years ago. I mean, it goes to the point about making sure you're dealing with. Before somebody goes on a Mac race, we're going to take them out on some rough races. That Michigan City race is awesome. Waukegan race, that's often a rough one. So if you can get them out there on some really bad stuff, I strongly advise that. So you know what you're dealing with.
Wait a minute, Ben.
Yeah.
Before we get off medical. One of the things that I do is before the race, I have everybody fill out a card or a piece of paper and put it in an envelope with their name on it. So that if they have to be given to this person has to be given to the Coast Guard for whatever reason, or other medical people coming aboard, they have listed any condition they have, all the meds that they take, what their name is, their closest contact, allergies, because you want to be able to just pick that envelope out of all the envelopes in the nav station and hand it to the person that is going to be responsible for the ill person or the injured person.
And be sure that those crew members bring all their meds that they may need, including EpiPens and that type of thing, because a lot of people don't think about that, but then that suddenly now somebody's got a latex allergy on board.
Yeah, the point was make sure your crew brings all the meds that they need.
Yeah, it was that same thing, but also in that envelope, I remember we would do like a rescue med. Like, if this happens, this is what you can do immediately to help me.
Yes, Amy just said if one of the things that was in the envelope for a lot of people was if this happens, here's what you need to do to help me. So all that stuff is important to have on board.
Okay, a sensitive subject. Are there conditions on which would not let somebody pee off the stern?
Certainly. So the question is, in certain conditions, would a skipper not allow crew to pee off the stern? Yes. In my simple answer is absolutely. In the T10, we use buckets, and
We went to the bucket at night.
anybody, bucket at night is so much easier, and everybody should do it.
It's a risk reward thing. It's a risk reward thing. Having someone hanging off the back, dragging on the back stay. We put the bucket in the toilet, and that's what everyone uses at night. And then we have.
Another question?
Yeah, I've got a question about, after you guys make the turn at the top of the lake, like the second, the last two parts of the race, like what are you guys thinking about? How are you determining whether you position yourself like on the north side of the straight, the south side of the straight? And then why do you always go so fast there?
I mean, I think a lot of it,
The question.
the question is, what do you do after Bell Buoy 3, right? One of the things I think you do at Bell, that we always worry about after we take the shot of rum, is you make sure you got the right sails up. You make sure that the crew is hunkered down, safe. We always do a check, make sure nothing's breaking. I mean, I once had the rudder almost fall out of the rudder post almost fall out a mile before the finish line. So we take an inventory of everything after Bell Buoy 3 and making sure everything's good, making sure you got the right sails up. And at that point, we're looking at yellow brick, right? I mean, you're there. I mean, it's right there. And so you can have a look at what's going on and see if there are any trends that are out there. That's when yellow brick, I mean, you have it, and so it's somewhat more useful up there. But at that point, you're just trying to keep everything on the rails and making sure everybody's, you're worrying about big stuff, right? Making sure you have the right sails up, making sure they're trimmed properly. Nickel and diming over, whether you're 100 yards one way or another. I mean, we'll look at yellow brick, but that's not gonna be our first point of concern.
Listen, one thing I think you gotta really look for in that last run is go look at AIS and figure out which freaking freighter is gonna be plowing through the middle of
Yeah.
that course that you're gonna need to be on, and figure out which side of the freighter you wanna be on, because you're gonna be stuck. It seems like half the time we come through there's a giant freighter, it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And if you get stuck on the wrong side of that guy, you're kind of stuck, like literally.
Good, that's a good point.
Also, if you can check in with weather or the conditions, just before you get out of landfall area, if you can check in with things now with Starlink, it's a lot easier, but it's a good time to check in, like what might have changed from the forecast that I saw on Saturday morning or Friday. Is something coming down the pike that you need to be prepared for? Because I think we forget that storms can certainly happen up there too. So that you can, if the wind is about to shift to the northwest, then you're gonna have to figure out, do you want to position yourself on the south shore of the North Shore?
Can you talk about the swirly current and wind through that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big current that comes through by Mackinac where Huron meets Michigan. And one of the things I've always done is check the buoys on your way past them. And which way does the current appear to be running? Because if you have two bathtubs, Huron and Lake Michigan are both bathtubs, that one is always draining into the other, always, one way or the other. And knowing which way that's going as you go under the bridge can make a huge difference in which end of the finish line you go to. So one end of the finish line, the island end, is deeper than the round island end. And depending on which way the current is going, you can get completely stuck there with a huge current running through and you're on the wrong end. We were talking earlier about Mark Kroll. There was one time that two T10s, or he was in a T10 at the time, were battling it out at the buoy end by Round Island. We weren't going anywhere because the current was so ferocious. And he noticed this and went around us from 3 miles behind us and won the race in the last 30 seconds. So, that current that sets up in there is key. That's really an important thing to watch for.
Other questions? I think we covered that. Yeah.
How about that area south of Grace Reef between Beaver Island and Bull Sharks Bay? That's tends to be really tricky. You got any tips and tricks there? Don't go near Beaver.
I hate Beaver Island. I don't.
It's okay on the way back.
We call it Beaver Island Upstuck.
Yeah, we don't.
Beaver is a death zone.
Yeah, I don't.
Can be.
There was about 15 years ago. I remember I came out on deck and I looked around and we were heading for Beaver Island and my father was staring and I said, "What are we doing?" "Well, we're going fast. We're going." And I saw Beaver in front of us. So we dived and got out of there. So yeah, anytime you're close to Beaver Island, it's probably not good.
There's a truism.
Yeah, that is.
There's two truisms that we've uncovered between the Stobbles and
Right.
Beaver Island.
There's another point in that area which is Skilly Gully. Skilly is an important piece. So if you take the run line from Manitou's up to Gray's, and you're right on the run line, Skilly is not a problem, but everybody know what Skilly is, right? Well, not all of you. Okay, so it's spelled, it says illegally, but it's labeled, it's Skilly here. If you are on the right side of the course, it's a bunch of shoals that you gotta watch out for. And so if usually at night, you go in at night, make sure you know what the lighthouse signature is at Skilly versus Gray's. Gray's is a
lighthouse.
There's a lighthouse there. There's a 15-second red, I think, at Gray's, and I think it's a 6-second white at Skilly, if I'm remembering it. So just know the difference and don't be pointing at the white lighthouse the white light because you think it's somehow Gray's, and then the next thing you know, boom.
To be clear, most of the 40.7s ran somewhere very close to Scully Glee last year.
Yes, I've had people.
Wired was egregiously close and didn't hit it.
While we're on the topic of things not to hit, right? So there at the end, there's Graham Shoal Buoy, okay? And I mentioned this because somebody hit it last year, at least a couple people. So years ago, before I was chair, people would run around on Graham Shoal all the time. My buddy Jimmy Webb did it. There's lots of people who run around on it. So I had the bright idea, well, let's make it a mark of the course so that people know about it and don't hit it. And we did. And then some people on the MAC committee said, oh, that's a stupid idea. Let's leave it in there. It'll be a feature that people can get around. So every once in a while, there's somebody that gets that idea, and it's usually Josh. But this year, somebody went roll right over the top. So watch out for that. I think it's an unmarked buoy. It's a non-buoy.
Yeah.
And you're tired at the end. Probably somebody's going to screw something up. So be very aggressive in worrying about Graham Shoal Buoy and Skilly.
That is somebody asked earlier what to check as you're going under the bridge. Where's Graham Shoal? Where is it sighted? Make sure you know where it is. It's not lighted. It's a small little red nun. It's so easy. Yeah.
Again, while we're on the topic of things not to hit, right? So Gray's Reef, I mean, on the left side of Gray's Reef, there's a bunch of rocks. And so you're supposed to go between the lighthouse and there's a channel marker. There's a green can.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows that, right? Because it's kind of far off. Make sure you're in the channel. Make sure you don't get over too far left in Gray's because you can run aground on the rocks. That's another area to be watchful for. Anyone? Question? I think
we should wrap up.
Yeah. Well, we can wrap up. It's your show.
One
Was
question.
there a question?
We have a final question. Otherwise, we'll be around if you want to chat afterwards.
Yeah.
All right.
We done?
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Craig Roll, who's the Titan 10 fleet captain and helped me a lot in everything done. Jeff Fogel, fleet captain of the offshore fleet. The T10 fleet and the offshore fleet here are the ones who are actually sponsoring these things. And they've done, we're into our, 15th year or maybe even more than that.
20 years.
Yeah,
We've lost count.
yeah.
You're doing a good
It's
job.
it's these people who put these things on, and we hope you enjoy it. The next up is March 21st and oh, sorry, February 21st. And our plan is to have someone from the Vaccaro starting system give us a little talk about that system, how it works. Give us a little thought about what we might want to do. And then another panel that I want to put together of good starters. Maybe they do crappy in the races, but they start good. I want to put how to approach the start line. We'll have a small section on rules in effect at the start, and then we'll have some people who could explain how best to get a good, clean start off the line. And then in March, we are planning to have first aid on the water. I'm trying to get a physician from Detroit who is with the Coast Guard Auxiliary, does a lot of lecture work out there in the clubs to tell sailors about first aid on the water. So, thanks for coming.
Steve, I have one more point.
Yeah.
I want to give a big thanks to Steve and Amy, because they're the ones who
No,
make it
they-
happen. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Not me. I've been you.
One day they'll be
Thank
posted
you.
online.
And Amy thinks. Don't thank me. All I want to say is if you're a member of this club,
Okay, clean up.
stick around because you're going to be pushing furniture for the next 10